What's up YouTube? My name is Luke and welcome to my channel Celio's Network. If you've been here before, you may be aware that I like to focus on the competitive aspects of the Pokemon trading card game. However, today I will be fusing competitive with casual by providing you with a budget spell tag Malamar deck list. Before we continue, I'd like to shout out PotownStore.com, the best place to get PTCGO codes, and you can use code Celio for 5% off. And also FlipsideGaming.com, where I write free articles, and you can use code Celio all caps for 10% off of your next order $10 or more. So what to expect from this video? This video will be the start of a series for decks on a budget. Although I will be providing a list for a budget deck in this video, the deck I will be showing you guys is viable for competitive and strategic play. It is upgradable, and it is great for newer or more casual players that may not be sure how much money they want to invest, or you just don't have enough money to invest in a more expensive deck. This is great for you. I'll also be providing analysis and explanation. In addition to a deck list and prices, I'll tell you how the deck works and how to upgrade it in the future. So, like I said, this is going to be on a Malamar deck, calling it Budget Squids. It's for the standard format, which at the time of recording this video is Ultra Prism through Sword and Shield base set. This deck will cost you around $50 for all 60 of the paper cards, and on PTCGO you can trade for all of the cards you need for this deck for about 35 packs according to my estimations. So how did I exactly come up with these prices? Well, for PTCGO, it was a combination of looking at the public trade ladder and offering packs and seeing how many packs each card goes for, and also looking at PTCGOstocks.com, which is a good resource for looking at more valuable and more important cards and getting a rough estimation of how much it will cost to trade for the cards you want. For real-life cards, or paper cards as I'll refer to them, I used TCGplayer.com, and you can see my shopping cart summary there. I have 60 cards in the shopping cart. Before estimated shipping, it comes to around $48, and then after estimated shipping, it comes to around $51. Of course, these prices will fluctuate as cards go up and down, but as of the time of recording this video, that's the price of the deck list I'll be showing you guys today. So we are looking at Spell Tag Malamar, and there are many lists for Spell Tag Malamar, or Psychic Malamar as some people may call it. But Spell Tag Malamar in general, it excels by using single prize Pokemon and spreading damage with Spell Tag. And because of Giratina's Distortion durability and Malamar's Psychic Recharge ability, you can have a continuous flow of Pokemon to attack with and energy to fulfill attack costs. So you have this constant recursion of your Giratina. You also have other single prize Pokemon, and the goal is to try to out-trade your opponent's bigger Pokemon that reward more prize cards, and also have an efficient flow of Pokemon and energy throughout the game. This is also a very good strategic deck where you have to learn different strategies, which Pokemon to attack with, and also sequencing for when you put a Pokemon into the active because of your Psychic Recharge ability. So this is great if you're just starting out and trying to learn the game and the different sequencing, and it's also a competitive archetype. So we'll start off with the support Pokemon of the deck. Of course, this is a Malamar deck, and those are going to be very important cards for the deck to function. So the Inkay is 23 cents a copy, and the Malamar is 53 cents a copy. The Inkay is just there because we need to evolve into our Malamar. And once we have a couple of Malamars on the board, we can start using our Psychic Recharge, which reads: once during your turn, you may attach a Psychic Energy card from your discard pile to one of your benched Pokemon. It's very important to keep in mind that these are always going to your benched Pokemon. So if you have a Pokemon in the active you want more energy on, you're going to have to get that out of there onto the bench and then get it back into the active. Malamar is going to keep energy flowing onto our board, either initial energy attachments or when a Pokemon gets knocked out and you have to recharge them onto a new one. We also have many ways to discard energy in this deck to get the energies into the discard pile, so then we can later use Psychic Recharge to accelerate those energies. The main attackers of the deck, we've got a few of them. We'll start off with Giratina with that Distortion durability. So its ability reads: once during your turn before your attack, if this Pokemon is in your discard pile, you may put it onto your bench. If you do, put 1 damage counter on 2 of your opponent's benched Pokemon. So this Distortion Door ability is really, really good for two reasons. One, of course, it puts damage on your opponent's benched Pokemon, so that damage can definitely add up and matter later on. Two, it comes back into play from your discard pile onto your bench. We used to not have great Pokemon retrieval and recycling in standard format for a while there. We do have some good cards like Ordinary Rod and Lana's Fishing Rod, but Distortion Door is just such a great way to keep an efficient flow of Pokemon. If maybe Giratina is your only attacker and you just swing with that 6 times, that can work some games. And then it does have the really solid attack Shadow Impact. For Psychic Colorless Energy, it deals 130 damage, and you put 4 damage counters on one of your Pokemon. So you'll usually just put these 4 damage counters on your Giratina because you don't really mind if it gets knocked out. Next, we have Mimikyu. It has the Filch attack, draw 2 cards. That's not really why it's here, but every now and again you'll use it for Filch. And then it has the attack Copycat. If your opponent's Pokemon used an attack last turn that was not a GX attack, you can use that attack as this turn's attack for Mimikyu. So Copycat, it reads like it sounds on the attack. It just uses whatever attack your opponent used last turn, as long as it's not a GX attack. This is so good because Zacian V is a very popular attacker in the format right now, and Brave Blade does 230 damage. Zacian V has 220 HP, so you can just copycat that Brave Blade and do 230 damage, knock out a 2-prize Pokemon with your single prize Mimikyu. Next is Espurr. It has the Ear Kinesis attack. This attack does 20 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon for each damage counters on their Pokemon. So if your opponent's benched Pokemon has 8 damage counters on it, Ear Kinesis does 160 damage to it, totaling in at 240 total. Of course, it scales up every time, so if they have 9 damage counters, you're doing 180 damage to it, total 270 damage on that Pokemon. Espurr is great for cleaning up attackers, for cleaning up attacks that you didn't knock out a Pokemon with earlier. So if you Shadow Impact a Pokemon and they retreat to the bench, you can do 260 to it with your Kinesis if it has the 130 from Shadow Impact still. So Espurr is a really cool card that gets around the active Pokemon and hits them on the bench. We have another bench damage Pokemon, or potential bench damage Pokemon here, with the Psychic Blacephalon. It has the attack Fireworks Bomb. Put 4 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. If your opponent has exactly 3 prize cards remaining, put 12 damage counters on their Pokemon however you like. So we'll get into a combo that's in this deck to make Fireworks Bomb really good against stall or mill strategies. But Fireworks Bomb, if your opponent just naturally goes down to 3 prize cards, you can spread 12 damage counters however you like. And kind of like Ear Kinesis, you can spread and clean up kills from earlier, or you can set up maybe an Ear Kinesis kill, or set up something that you can knock out 2 Pokemon at one time with Distortion Door. Because this deck plays around with spread damage, with your abilities, your attacks, and even the spell tags that we'll get to later, there's a lot of really cool interactions that will sometimes be unique, or sometimes 1 out of 100 games you can pull off something like taking all of your prizes in just one turn, or taking double knockouts with Distortion Door. So there's a lot of really neat stuff you can do with these cards. Next, we have some tech Pokemon. So we've got the Latios-GX, 170 HP, and it has the attack Tag Purge. For Psychic Colorless, it does 120 damage. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from Tag Team Pokemon. So Pokemon like Pikarom and Arceus Dialga Palkia cannot damage this Latios-GX. And then it also has the Clear Vision GX attack, which reads that your opponent cannot use a GX attack this game. So Clear Vision GX is really great if you're playing against an ADP, an Arceus Dialga Palkia focused deck that wants to use Altered Creation. If you can use Clear Vision early before they can use Altered Creation, a huge part of their game plan is now gone. Also note that Latios-GX's ability Power Bind is actually a disadvantage for the card. If you have 4 or fewer Pokemon in play, this Pokemon can't attack, so you have to have a full bench to be able to attack with Latios-GX. Of course, unless there is a power plant out, which would turn off the ability. Mew with Bench Barrier is also a tech Pokemon. It's very good against anything running Naganadel-GX with Venom Shot, which can do 170 to one of your benched Pokemon. It's also good against Pikarom, which has the Tag Bolt attack that does 200 to the active and 170 to the bench. So Bench Barrier will definitely come out in specific matchups. And also Psi Power. For a colorless, put 3 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. This can be a useful attack in certain scenarios, but most of the time we have something better. We can just swing 130 vanilla to the active with Tina, or we can spread 4 or 12 damage counters with our Psychic Blacephalon. So Mew can sometimes be used maybe early in the game when you can just only get 1 energy down, but usually Mew is there for the Bench Barrier ability. Here we have some more tech Pokemon with the Poipole and Naganadel-GX. We're going to be playing one of each of them. So the Naganadel-GX, of course, evolves from Poipole, and that's why Poipole is there. And the Stinger GX is a really neat GX attack, and it can be very useful versus certain strategies and in certain scenarios. So Stinger GX for 3 colorless energies. It reads that both players shuffle their prize cards into their deck and then sets the top 3 cards of their deck down as their new prize cards. So each player gets reset to 3 prize cards, regardless if you were ahead or behind. Now both players are at 3 prize cards. This is very interesting for the Malamar deck because it has the Blacephalon that says if your opponent has 3 prize cards, you can spread 12 damage counters however you like. So if you're playing against a stall or mill or control style deck that doesn't really take prizes, you can Stinger GX them. They won't knock out your Naganadel-GX usually unless they have some sort of tech prepared for this matchup or this strategy. And then you can just use Blacephalon to spread 12 damage counters at a time, putting a whole lot of pressure on your opponent's board. You can also, maybe versus something like Pikarom, you can hit a Pikarom once with your Tina, and then Stinger GX to set both players to 3, and then just clean up that Pikarom, knock it out with Espurr, with Blacephalon, with Tina, so you can Great Catcher it up or just hit it while it's on the bench. And then you win the game by just knocking out 1 Pokemon. And then, of course, we have the Ditto Prism here, which I believe is actually the most expensive card in the deck. And it's just good because it can evolve into either the Naganadel-GX or into the Malamar. It counts as sort of a 5th Inkay and a 2nd Poipole both at the same time. You could potentially cut the Ditto or cut the Poipole, but I think if you're playing for the strategy of the Naganadel-GX plus the Blacephalon, that's 2 one-of cards that you don't want to prize either of. And if you were only playing the Poipole or the Ditto, then that's 3 one-of cards you don't want to prize for that combo. So I think playing the Ditto and the Poipole just helps that out a little bit more. Next, we're getting into the trainers. So Professor's Research. Discard your hand, draw 7 cards. That's kind of the gold standard now for supporters. It's been a card in the past with Professor Sycamore and Professor Juniper, both reading discard your hand, draw 7. And until we got Professor's Research in Sword and Shield, Cynthia was the best draw supporter, which is shuffle your hand, draw 6. We're going to be playing 4 of both of those cards just so we can have consistent draw. Also, Acro Bike will be playing 4 of. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck and put one of them into your hand, discard the other card. Now, something else to notice is that Professor's Research and Acro Bike can both potentially help you get your Giratinas into the discard pile to use their Distortion Door, and it can also help you get your Psychic Energy into the discard pile to use your Psychic Recharge to accelerate those energies. Next, we've got trainers that are going to help us search our decks for specific targets. So, Mysterious Treasure, discard a card from your hand. If you do, search your deck for a Psychic or Dragon-type Pokemon, reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. This is great because we're playing mostly Psychic Pokemon, so that's a free search, or a discard 1 search for any of our Pokemon. And then we also have Quick Ball, which we can search any of our basic Pokemon with, also discarding 1 card. So, discarding a card for the Mysterious Treasure or for the Quick Ball, both great because we can get rid of a Tina or an energy and then also get a Pokemon that we need from our deck. Viridian Forest is another discard 1, search for a card. So it's actually very, very efficient in this deck since a lot of times we want to discard cards. So Viridian Forest allows each player during their turn to discard a card from their hand and search their deck for a basic energy. So we can potentially get an energy into our discard pile to then accelerate with Malamar, and also get a psychic energy from our deck to either discard that one as well or attach that one for turn. So all of these cards are very, very good and very helpful at keeping the deck consistent and helping us get what we want into our hands and into our discard pile. Next, we've got some utility trainers. So these are all doing different helpful things, and they're mostly unique in their own ways. So Great Catcher, you can play this card only if you discard 2 other cards from your hand, and then you can gust up or switch up one of your opponent's benched GXs from their bench up to the active spot. So earlier when I mentioned if you hit a Pika-Rom with your Tina for 130, and then you use Stinger GX to set both players down to 3 prizes, then you could later Great Catcher up that Pika-Rom and clean it up with your Tina and win the game just like that. So Great Catcher is really good for bringing up anything that was damaged. You can also just bring up a Dedenne GX and swing at it because the Dedenne GXs are very fragile at only 160 HP. Next, we've got Switch. Very simple card. Switch your active Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon. This is just a great utility card to have in a lot of decks. Switching your Pokemon in and out from active to bench is very important, and especially in this deck since we are accelerating our energy with Psychic Recharge from the discard to only a benched Pokemon. Lana's Fishing Rod helps us get back a Pokemon and a Pokemon Tool card, which is a very nice combination of cards to get back in this deck specifically, because the next 2 cards we're looking at are Tool cards. So we are playing Air Balloon. The retreat cost of this Pokemon, of the Pokemon this card is attached to, is 2 colorless less. That'll help us retreat easier if we aren't hitting a switch. And also Spell Tag. So this is definitely a major part of this deck. When the psychic Pokemon this card is attached to is knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack, put 4 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. So yet another way to spread damage around on your opponent's board, clean up kills, set up knockouts for later on. Spell Tag, you want to get this on your Tinas, so when your opponent knocks out that Tina, you did 130 damage to them. Now they knock it out and you're putting 40 more damage on their board. And then when you return that Tina to the bench with Distortion Door, you're putting another 2 damage counters. So that one Tina, if it had a Spell Tag, could potentially put a total of 190 damage on your opponent's board. So Spell Tag is definitely something you want to see early. You don't want to discard it if you can help it, and you want to get it down on the Pokemon you'll be attacking with or the Pokemon you think your opponent's going to try knocking out. Now, for energy cards, we don't really have anything too exciting here. We're just playing Psychic Energy. You could play Recycle Energy, but I think it's safe to just play Psychic so you can discard them and put them back into play, and you can search them out with Viridian Forest. There's not really much to say about the basic energy, but you do need these energy to attack with all of your attacks. So here is the deck list for the Spell Tag Malamar deck. All 60 cards here add up to roughly $50 and 35 packs worth on PTCGO. The list that is written out on the left side of the screen, that will be in the description below, so you can either just save that to your phone or your computer if you want, take a screenshot of this deck, or you can export that text that will be in the description directly into your PTCGO to get the deck that you see here on the screen. Possible upgrades for this deck include Jirachi from Team Up with the Stellar Wish ability. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, you may look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Reveal a trainer card you find there and put it into your hand. Shuffle the other cards back into your deck, and this Pokemon is now asleep. So you might notice that this card runs for $24 a piece, and you would normally want 3 or 4 of these in your deck, so you can see why that is not in this budget version of Spell Tag Malamar. And on PTCGO it goes for around 24 packs of Sword and Shield. But Stellar Wish is a very good ability, especially now since you cannot play supporters going first on your first turn with the new Sword and Shield rules. So Jirachi, while it is very good, you can get by without it. Not every deck in the standard format plays it, don't get me wrong, but it is a very good ability to have around. A possible attacker you can put in this deck, these next 3 Pokemon we'll look at are attackers for the deck. One is Trevenant and Dusknoir Tag Team, which a copy of that is about $15 for paper or 14 packs on PTCGO. It has the Night Watch attack for 3 Psychic Energy. It does 150 damage, and shuffle 2 cards from your opponent's hand. Choose 2 random cards from your opponent's hand and shuffle those into your opponent's deck. Now, this will sometimes be paired with Marnie, a supporter from Sword and Shield, that shuffles your opponent's hand into their deck and they draw 4. But Trevenant Dusknoir can also just be fine on its own as a way to manipulate your opponent's hand. And then it also has the Pale Moon GX attack for Psychic and Colorless. At the end of your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon is knocked out. If this Pokemon has at least 1 extra Psychic Energy on it, which would be Psychic, Colorless, also discard all energy attached to the defending Pokemon. So, a situationally okay GX attack, but Trevenant Dusknoir is really known for its Night Watch attack. Next here we've got Gengar Mimikyu, going for around $11 to $12 for paper and 3.5 packs of Sword and Shield on PTCGO. This is another tag team Pokemon, and it has the attack Poltergeist 50 times. Your opponent reveals their hand. This attack does 50 damage for each trainer card you find there. And then it also has the Horror House GX attack for Psychic Plus. Your opponent can't play any cards from their hand during their next turn. If this Pokemon has at least 1 extra Psychic Energy attached to it, each player draws cards until they have 7 cards in their hand. So usually with this card, or maybe not usually, but a lot of the times with this card, you will go for a Horror House GX to stop your opponent from playing any cards. They'll pass back to you, and then you Poltergeist if they have a large hand to hopefully do a lot of damage with this card. Now, Trevenant Dusknoir, Gengar Mimikyu, and the next card we'll look at, Solgaleo Lunala, are all tag team Pokemon, and you don't necessarily need them or want them in your deck. All of these cards are possible upgrades. They're not cards that you would even necessarily add in if you had the extra money or you had the extra packs to trade for. They're not necessarily always optimal. They're just possible cards that if you have them or you think they might be good in your deck or you want to try them out, these are ways to upgrade and change your deck around. So the Solgaleo and Lunala tag team with 270 HP is mostly used for its Cosmic Burn attack, which for 3 Psychic and a Colorless Energy does 230 damage. And this Pokemon can't use Cosmic Burn during your next turn. So it's just a nice way to deal a large chunk of damage at one time. And you'll notice that our other attackers are usually 2-shotting things, or Mimikyu is copying an opponent's attack to one-shot them back. So Solgaleo and Lunala is a way to be a little more aggressive with the deck. It's $6 to $7 for paper and about 1.5 packs on PTCGO. The last card I have here, of course, there are countless cards you could always put in a deck, but this is the last card I would suggest maybe trying out if you have a play set of them or you wanted to try more gust effects. It can also double as a card that can draw you cards, and that's Custom Catcher. You may play 2 Custom Catcher cards at once. If you played 1 card, draw cards until you have 3 cards in your hand, and if you played 2, switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active Pokemon. So you can either draw a few cards with this card, or you can gust up one of your opponent's Pokemon that you wanted to damage or knock out, or maybe try to get stuck there. So Custom Catcher is a very popular card in the format. It's not necessarily very popular in Malamar decks at the moment, but it has been in Malamar decks in the past, and you can consider adding it into this Spell Tag Malamar list if you wanted extra gust, extra draw, or both. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video on a budget Psychic Malamar list for the standard format. Once again, this list will cost you about $50 in paper or about 35 packs of Sword and Shield on PTCGO. If you're looking for PTCGO codes, of course, go over to my sponsor, PotownStore.com, and use code Celio for 5% off. And if you're looking for physical cards or supplies, you can always go to FlipsideGaming.com and use code Celio, all caps, for 10% off of your next order, $10 or more. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video and you would like to see more content like this. And as always, please give me suggestions and feedback and let me know what you want to see next. I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.